We are so delighted that Kristen had a health fair, when was it, about in February, I think, of last year, and Amy was one of the people who volunteered to come. And her story is written in the handouts that you see. She comes from this the way many of us have come through life. She had to take care of her father and learn from the ground up how to deal with the challenges of being an executor. So this is really heartfelt. And the longer I live here, the more I learn about how many of us have to deal with this issue. So we're really delighted that Amy will be here and will share what she learned the hard way, and as it says in there, personal challenge to helping hand. That's what she's going to give us. Let's give Amy a hand.
Hello, Stephanie. Well, I'm so excited to be here. Frankie approached me at the health fair, and she said, "I do this thing. We do this thing here. It's great. It's kind of like a TED Talk." And I thought, "Yeah, I'm in." She had so much energy and so much passion about it, and I can see that in the attendance here. This is an amazing turnout. So thank you so much for having me. Like Frankie said, my name is Amy Wood, and I am with Executor Support. And today, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. I'm going to give a little bit of background on myself, and then we are going to talk. The big topic is going to be preparing for end of life, and we're going to get into we're going to do some broad talks about general estate planning, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritty of like real ways that things that you can do today to help your heirs and your beneficiaries. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about executor support and what we do and how we might be able to help you in those ways. I would be remiss if I didn't stop and acknowledge my friend Rochelle Angel Kyle. Many, many years ago, almost 20 now, if this is a great presentation, you can thank her because everything I learned about public speaking was from Rochelle. If this is not so great, just know I was not a very good student then. But when she was working for Weight Watchers, she had a Weight Watchers meeting in Central Market, and I was her receptionist, I guess. And so I sat and checked people in, and for 30 minutes or an hour every week, every Tuesday, I got to watch Rochelle engage with people every week, and I just, it was a real inspiration, Rochelle, so thank you so much for that.
You don't look a day older.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I come from a background, I grew up in a small town northwest of Houston called Waller, Texas. It's about 50 miles down 290, and that is where I grew up, and that is where my mom is. And then I moved into Houston for college in 1995, and pretty quickly, maybe some might say too quickly, married my husband, and we started our family here in Houston. So I am a small town girl. I also have lived in central Houston most of my adult life, and so I kind of have like a little bit of a foot in both worlds. My roots are very much small town, but I've raised my kids here in Houston. I have 3 kids. They are 16, 18, and 21. My 2 girls are off to college. They go to Texas State University in San Marcos. One's a freshman and one's a senior. Both very different phases of their college career, but they have each other there, and it's awesome. And then my 16-year-old son is still at home with us, so I have 2 more years, 2 more years to adjust. Although my husband and I joke that we're kind of quasi-empty nesters because he's like a mushroom. He really needs nothing from me at this point. He feeds himself. He drives where he wants to go. So it's still pretty quiet at our house already. But that's good because the business is really, people will ask me, well, are you preparing for like empty nester? What are you thinking is the next phase? And I thought, executor support is the next baby. That's my project now. How executor support started was, like Frankie said, I do have experience in this, as most of us do, right? We've all lost a parent and had to kind of learn suddenly how to, all the ins and outs of probate and what it means and all the things that have to get done. And I, like a lot of people, just thought, okay, well, I've got a lawyer. The lawyer's going to do all of it, and I just have to sign some things. And oh, was I so wrong. No, there's actually a lot of work that really nobody but the executor can do. Also, I spent about 8 to 10 years as a personal assistant, and my first ever client was a man and a woman who they own a very successful capital management company here in Houston. And I worked, his name is John, and I worked very closely. I managed their household, and then John is a collector of people. When he likes someone, he likes the way they think, he likes the way they work, he just keeps getting them closer and closer. So by the time we were done in 8 years, I was managing his household. I was supporting him in his chairman of the board work. He's the chairman of the board for a couple of nonprofits. And I was just in his space. And so a series of unfortunate events, and he became the executor and trustee for 3 different estates in his family within about 18 months. His mother-in-law, an aunt, and a cousin, all in 18 months. And because I was in his space, and he's a busy, business owner, he just kept handing things to me. I knew some things, but I didn't know a lot about wealth. And the estates he was dealing with were pretty significant in their size. And so a lot of that was new, and I was kind of learning as I went. And then it gets to about 2020, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. It's 2020, it's January. I'm seeing the writing on the wall, and my kids are getting older, and I know that personal assistants have been great for me and my family, and it served my family well, but it is not my forever job. That's not the thing I want to do forever. And so I didn't know what to do, and so I decided to reboot my career by going back to school and getting an MBA. And so I started that in January of 2020, and I gave John my 1-year notice because, again, I was really in all of his little spaces, and I knew it was going to take a while to replace me, so I gave him 1-year notice. And within 6 months, he calls me and he says, have you ever seen yourself as an entrepreneur? I said, no way. I am risk averse. No, thank you. I see myself in a med center or at oil and gas behind a desk and with my time off and my holidays and my 401k. And he said, no, Amy, I think you've got it. And listen, there's a market here. I'm not the only person in the world who needed help during probate and trust administration. I'm not the only one who could use an extra set of hands. I've been doing some research, and I think there's a business here. Let's get that started. So I took the leap because I trust him more than most people. I think it's, my husband and John. It's kind of in that order. He's a very trustworthy guy, and I said, okay, if you think I can do it, let's do it. And 5 years later, I am very much enjoying this work. I've learned so much, and I get to talk to you guys about what I've learned. So, we are going to talk a lot about preparing for end of life. This is kind of a funny little cartoon. It may be hard to see, but it says, remember, where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's no will, there's a way to make money. And that is an attorney teaching probate law 101. So that is an illustration of it. It's very important to do your estate planning ahead of time. If nothing else, it saves your beneficiaries money. And we'll talk about how and why. So so what are these documents, right? What kind of documents should you be preparing? And because of where you all are, and you've made I would say you have some forethought, and you've thought ahead because already you've changed your lifestyle and where you live, right? So I'm going to imagine that a lot of people here have done some level of estate planning. But I would challenge you and ask you, how long has it been since you dusted off the documents and just took a look to see, are my beneficiaries still current? Has anyone had any more grandchildren or great-grandchildren? Has anyone passed away? Is everything still current? And that's really one of the most important parts. But some of this information, you guys are going to be like, I know all of that. But some of you might not. So we're going to talk about this on a level as if you don't know much about it, and then we'll get into more kind of advanced topics. But the first one, obviously, we want to make sure you have your last will and testament. Most of us know what a will is, what it does. So it does several very, very important things, and it's the only document where you will do this, where you assign or appoint your executor. You write down your wishes of how you want your estate administered. And then also, it is the only document in estate planning where if anyone is currently a guardian of a minor, this is where they would state who they would want their successor guardian to be for that minor. So if you have any children, grandchildren with little ones at home, you're going to want to make sure they also know they need to get their will done. If they may say, but I don't have anything. But this is the one document where you can name guardianship of minors. In Texas, something unique about Texas that's not accurate for all states is Texas actually allows what we call holographic wills. And that's just a fancy name for handwritten. So in a crisis, in an emergency, if you needed to, you could write a handwritten will. So we don't suggest that, right? There's a lot of reasons we don't suggest that. One is it is very vulnerable for contesting that will in court. Somebody could say that's not their handwriting. Okay, well now we're dragging out a handwriting specialist, or people are signing affidavits swearing that's my mom's handwriting. And that just is dollars. Every time I say, well now we have to do this, just imagine an attorney is doing that and he or she is charging their rate of $400 an hour to get all that together, petition the court, show it for a hearing, all that stuff. So it's very expensive. So if anyone contests that, that's one thing. The other thing about handwritten wills, there are words that we say in a will. For instance, we appoint an executor and we name them as an independent executor. So when your will says that, that just means, that tells the judge, I trust this person and I don't need court oversight. I don't need the judge to make this a dependent probate. It can be independent. This executor can go about their business, do what they need to do. I trust this person. So if you're writing a handwritten will and you say, I appoint Bobby Sue to be my executor, and you don't say independent executor, again, somebody could come out of the woodwork and say, well, I don't trust Bobby Sue. I want the court to make this a dependent case. And just, again, here dollars. That is very, very expensive. So there are a lot of reasons not to do that, but it is available to you. And the other thing about handwritten wills is they do, unlike typed up computer printed wills, they do not need to be witnessed nor notarized, because it is written in your own hand, and by your own hand you are self-proving that will. A little bit of trivia about Texas wills. So this is a little cartoon that says, we just created a living trust and I have no idea what to feed it. This is so true. So I think most people have heard about trusts. Even if it's just a word that's kind of floated around, or you've seen it in movies or heard about it. There's an HBO show called Succession, and they talk about trusts a lot and who's got a trust and what's going on with the trust. And until I really started learning about estate planning, I didn't really understand anything about trusts. And one of the assumptions I had is an attorney would write up a trust, and then I have a trust. And everything's, I have a trust. It's actually not true. So I'm going to tell you a little case study. 2 weeks ago, I met with a woman. She just wanted a consultation. She said, I've got my mother's documents here. I just need you to look over it and make sure I know what I'm looking at. Now, I should have said this at the very beginning. I am not an attorney, and she knew that very well. I'm not an attorney, so any questions you have that get really legal, I'm going to refer you to your attorney, or I can find one for you. But she knew that I was not an attorney. She said, yeah, but you look at these things all the time. You're in the area. Can you just swing by? Sure. So, yes, her mother, she showed me her mother's estate plan. It was in a beautiful binder we flipped through. And she said, this is a trust. And yes, in her will, her mother had set up what's called a testamentary trust. And so in the will, it makes provisions for a trust can be created on my death. And I said, yes, this is a testamentary trust. And then we flipped again and we saw her actual trust. It said, the living trust or the Bobby Sue revocable trust. Okay, yep, that's a trust document. But her mother passed away a year ago, and she's been doing all of the things, the checking accounts and the financial accounts and all the things. And I said, well, so what's in the trust? And she said, well, we have a trust. And I said, right, but as you were going through the accounts, was there any checkbook that you found that said the Bobby Sue Revocable Trust, was anything named that? And she said, well, no, it was just in her name. And I said, well, this is a very beautiful and very expensive document that doesn't mean anything, right? Because that's what's called trust funding. So when you leave your attorney's office with your beautiful $2,000 document, you then have a new job or you have homework, and that is called trust funding. You have to start calling your bank. You have to call your agent at Schwab or Vanguard or Fidelity or wherever it is that you have your investments, and you have to say, okay, Bob, I just set up a new trust and I want to convert my accounts into, bam, the trust is funded and it becomes a living thing. It's living, it's breathing, it's alive, it's real. Until you put something, change the name on your house, your account, whatever it is, your property, that trust is just paper, okay? So that is a living trust, or there are many kinds of trusts, right? The most popular one, and if anyone has a trust in this room, I'm going to assume it's a revocable trust, also called a living trust. What that means is you set it up during your lifetime, and it is probably, you could name it the Walt Disney World Trust if you wanted to, but it's probably going to be your name, and it's going to be called the Bobby Sue Living Trust or Revocable Trust. And what that means typically is you are your own trustee. So in your lifetime, you are managing your trust just as if you managed your own bank account and your own investments and your own home before you had a trust. It is the same. And the IRS recognizes that trust as you. You are the trust is you. If you have a trust in your name and you are the trustee, you file your taxes with your Social Security number, and that's it. That trust does not need what we call an EIN, right? That special employer identification number that entities need. So I have a Social Security number, but my business has this EIN number that starts with 87 dash. And that's what I use to file my business taxes. So that living trust doesn't need that number until you pass away and your successor trustee takes over, and then that becomes an entity. But while you're living and you're your own trustee, you are that trust, and that trust is you as far as the government is concerned. So I said a word called successor trustee. So that is the person in your trust that you appoint as who you would like to manage your money and your affairs, either upon your incapacity, upon your death, or really at any time. At any time in your life, you can say, yes, I have all of my faculties. Yes, I drive myself around. However, I'm so tired of managing this. I resign. You can resign from your own living trust in your lifetime and let your successor trustee just kind of take over, because you're just tired of it. You don't want to do your taxes anymore. You're just tired of managing all the talking to that you're living or after your death. It's up to you. There are other kinds of trusts. There's one that's called irrevocable. Is exactly how it sounds. Once you sign on that dotted line and once you put some sort of asset into that trust, it's locked in. Whatever you said about where everything's going and the conditions around what's in that trust, it's done. The living trust, like I said, the government sees you as the trust and the trust is you, the living trust. It is not a tax efficient vehicle because the government sees that living trust as you. Irrevocable trust, because you're basically giving up your the government sees it as not, that's where my knowledge ends. And if you have more questions about that, you should call your CPA or your tax attorney. But there are other trusts that are helpful for taxes, but your living trust is not. A lot of people have a misconception that, well, I think I'm going to set up a trust because I want to do some special things and try to avoid some taxes. A living trust is not going to do that for you.
Why would you want a trust?
Okay.
And at what point?
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to come up here and ask all the questions when I leave something out. That's really important information. Thank you. Okay. Why trusts have become very popular? Because probate, not in the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, probate is pretty affordable, I would say, for the most part, unless it's contested. They can't represent myself in court. I should not, but I have free will and they allow me to do that. An executor is representing beneficiaries. And they're saying, no, that's practicing law. If you're representing other people, the beneficiaries posted in that will, you're practicing law. So Texas said we don't do that, so you have to have a lawyer. So there is an expense. And you can call around and lawyers will usually say, well, here's my package for probate. Is it complicated? No. Okay, then here's the package. It might be $3,000. But it still costs money and it takes time. And it takes time because there's a delay. Because you get the death certificates, you find a lawyer. First, you take care of the service and the memorial and the celebration of life. I always suggest that. Sometimes I get people who call me the day of or the next day. I'll say, I'm so sorry, and I want you to go do what you need to do with your family because nothing needs to happen right this minute. Call me back in a couple of weeks and we'll get started on it. But there is a delay. You have to get your death certificates, you find a lawyer, the lawyer gets together the application, they need some stuff from you. One of them is an inventory of assets, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then they submit all this and then they get a hearing date, and it's usually Zoom, and you don't usually have to be there. The lawyer takes care of it over Zoom. There's a hearing date, the judge hopefully says, sure, Dolly can be the executor of Bobby Sue's estate. And then there's some administration that happens behind the scenes. You finally get this golden ticket. Is called letters of administration or letters testamentary. Letters testamentary is if they had a will. Letters of administration is if they didn't have a will. Either way, you get the magic letter from the court, and now I can finally go to the bank. I can finally access the finances, the bank. I can call all sorts of different people on behalf of the estate because I finally have this golden ticket. If I'm trustee, none of that happens. If I'm trustee and Dad's account at Schwab was in the trust, I call my guy at Schwab, or Dad's guy at Schwab, and I say, hey, Dad passed away. And they say, okay, I'm so sorry to hear that. Send us the death certificate. That takes, what, a couple weeks, right? You get it from the funeral home. You send them the death certificate, you sent them they probably already have the trust certificate, but they might need a little bit of paperwork, and then you're off to the races. They've changed the account. Rather than it saying the Bobby Sue Living Trust, Bobby Sue, trustee, it'll be the Bobby Sue Living Trust, Dolly, trustee, or Amy Wood trustee. And then you're done. And that, it doesn't mean you are now on easy street. You still have work to do, but there's not that delay and there's not that expense with the attorney. You're not going to court. Second thing is, if you only have a will and you choose to give, let's say you have a daughter who just needed so much from you in your lifetime. Your son didn't really need that much, but you gave and gave and gave to your daughter. Your son was pretty much on cruise control, and for whatever reason you decide, I'm gonna give my son 70% of my estate and my daughter 30. You're just thinking, she got a lot of it beforehand. There are a lot of families just like that. But you may not want that to be public knowledge. When you have a will and it goes to court and it's probated, that is now public information. Anyone can pull that information. They can read your will. If they know how to go to the, courts.gov, houstoncourts.gov or probatecourt.gov, and know how to work that system, they can find your will and read it if they're just curious. Your neighbor can do it, anybody can do it. Trusts are private documents, so that stays in your family, or whoever. There's some rules around trusts. If you're a beneficiary in a trust, technically you have access to that trust. You get to see what it says. That you don't have to just trust the trustee. You have to be able to see it. So the people who are named in your trust will see it, but nobody else will. No one can. It's not public record. It's just a private document. So it's another benefit of using wills and trust versus a will. I will tell you this. Any lawyer that you go to and you say, I just want a trust, I don't need a will, because Amy said all those reasons, and I love trust, I want to do that. They are most likely not going to let you leave the office without a will. And here's why. You can do all your homework and put everything in the trust, But if something falls in through the cracks, oh, I forgot this mineral right. I totally forgot I inherited that mineral right 20 years ago. Forgot to change the name on the mineral rights to the name of my trust. Maybe I inherit something from a brother or a mom or dad or something, and something tragic happens to me 5 days later. And that inheritance never got into the trust. I never did my homework on that because it was 5 days later. Then that is now outside of your trust, and the only way your beneficiaries can access that is for them to now probate. And if you don't have a will, now we're talking money, okay? So a will, oftentimes they call them pour-over wills. If you love a trust and you're gonna have everything in your trust, your attorney will say, great, let's do a pour-over will. And that will is very short. It names your executor, and it says, if anything is outside of my trust, it's automatic. The beneficiary of that is my trust. Does that make sense? So anything outside, it's a catch-all. It's just a catch-all. Anything outside of my trust should go to my trust when I die. And then your executor can do that. Any more questions about trusts? We're going to talk a little bit more, but not much. They're very cool. They're not for everyone. If you don't have a lot of assets or a lot of property, it may not be appropriate for you. It might be like buying a Maserati when really you just go to Walgreens once a week, right? So you have to ask your attorney, like, do I really need a trust? What do you think? Okay? Yes.
We have a trust put in there if our named executors and co-executors and successive executors are all dead.
Yes.
Then it automatically goes to a bank who will establish a trust.
Absolutely. So what Elizabeth is, can I call you Elizabeth? Yeah. What she just mentioned is she has a trust, if you say trust, just in case everybody named in her executor, like, so in her will she's got an executor, and let me tell you, let me back up. Probate and estate planning attorneys have to be the grimmest people you've ever met. It is their job to think about all the worst case scenarios. You leave that room just thinking, oh my gosh, everybody in my life's gonna die apparently. But it's just their job to make sure there's an alternate and then a safety net. And Elizabeth was mentioning her own safety net that her lawyer set up. So she has an executor and a successor executor, an alternate. But if something were to happen to them, then she has a trust created, and because a bank can then be your trustee, she's assigned a bank as a trustee. That bank will probably never ever hear about it or see it, because most likely somebody on the list of executors will still be here and be willing to serve.
It's activated only after, in other words, there is no trust created right now.
Right, it's testamentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
On proof that all the
All of
executors
them are
are
done.
gone,
Yeah.
then a bank, I can't remember who it is,
Sure.
never heard of it.
Yeah.
Establishes a trust to handle the probate.
Yes, and that is the reason why your attorney set it up that way, a testamentary trust. So rather than just saying, well, if my daughter can't serve and all these people can't serve as executor, then Frost Bank Trust Department will serve as my executor. Banks don't serve as executors. They will be trustees a lot, but they, and we'll talk about this later, one of the reasons why I stay busy is because I get a lot of calls from people saying, okay, I've got this company's gonna be my executor, they're gonna do this, but they will not serve as, or they're gonna be my trustee, but they won't serve as my executor, and they won't serve as my medical power of attorney, and I need help because, one of my clients has worked here all her life, but her family, her sister is her age, and then her nieces, they all live in Switzerland, and they don't really speak English, and her sister should not be traveling to the U.S. So she doesn't feel like she can name any of her family. She's got a trustee as a bank department as a trust, but she had some gaps in her estate planning. If she funds her trust really well, yes, technically I'm her executor, but I will probably never serve in that role unless it's just a random signature that the trustee needs from me for some reason. But if everything's in her trust, then her bank will take care of that, and I was just a safety net in that case.
I I have one more question that may be related. I understand from our lawyers that the lawyers who draft your will and your estate plan may not serve as your probate attorney. Is that true?
No, I've not heard that.
He just doesn't want the job.
Maybe that's the case. Well, okay. So estate planners tend to be very kind of brainiacs, and they love their office and their desk, and they love people, but they are better in their office. It is very rare to find an estate planning attorney who will do litigation. And so some of them choose not to probate because, or they'll get a case for probate, and they'll say, by the way, we have this sister who she likes to sue people. That attorney will probably say, I'm not the right attorney for you because I don't do litigation. I don't go to court. Okay. So some estate planning attorneys will not do probate for the off chance that it's contested, and then they have to refer you to someone else anyway.
She said that she could recommend somebody out this end of town.
Exactly.
Necessarily.
But it's not true that they can't. That's not a conflict of interest.
I thought it was a Texas law, she said.
Okay, so this is my thing. I always defer to attorneys, so it might be one I've not heard of, but I actually, I know a lot of people who have done it, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. One thing I will say is, we're going to talk about later. So coming up, I'm glad you brought that up because some people will ask their financial advisors to serve in their estate plan. Makes total sense. Your financial advisor knows all the ins and outs. They've been with you through marriages, divorces, deaths. They've been through it all with you, and that makes sense. But for most of them, they will not serve in that way. That is a conflict of interest for them to be managing your estate and also distributing it. Yes, sir.
How often would you recommend having your trust reviewed?
So he asked how often would I recommend having a trust reviewed. Attorneys, I know, and I've sat through a lot of presentations by attorneys, they really like that once a year rule, especially if you get, I know, right? I barely wash my car once a year. But yeah, they do recommend once a year. I would say once every 2 years, depending on your season of life, but it is good to brush it off. We're going to talk in a little bit about some very practical, pragmatic things that you can do right now to make sure you're in good shape and to prepare. That's one of them, and we're going to talk about some other things that I really do think you should review pretty often. Okay, medical wishes. So your typical attorney, if you go and say, I need an estate plan and I do want to trust, you're going to walk out of there with a last will and testament, you're going to walk out of there with a trust document, and you're going to walk out of there with some documents that talk about your medical stuff. One of them is an advance directive. The advance directive is the document that it's usually a combo. It'll have like a DNR and then also a how I see my end of life, and it's a directive to your medical team. So these are documents that say, there are lots of little boxes to check, and you'll go through it with your attorney, but it'll talk about nutrition toward end of life. It'll talk about breathing support. It'll talk about different things like that. And it's kind of not a fun thing to fill out because you don't like to really imagine that. But it doesn't take very long, and I would just recommend that before you get to this part with your doctor, with your attorney, spend a few minutes thinking about that. Think about family members who've gone through this, that you've gone through it with, and your experience with them and what you really want. The worst thing is to kind of shrug and go, I don't know, because that's not really helping your medical team, that's not helping your kids or your family, your next of kin. And so take a few minutes to think about that, maybe even Google advanced directive. There's a billion templates online. Just read over it and kind of figure out what is my attorney going to be asking me about my end of life, so you can think about that before you go. Because it's kind of you don't want to make those decisions in 5 minutes at $400 an hour. Yes, save yourself some money and do that homework at home. The other thing that you're going to have is you have your own agency. You are your own medical power of attorney. So this is really for down the road when you're not able to communicate for any reason. Literally communicate, capacity, coma, that type of thing. This is a little thing. So durable power of attorney. We chose each other because the dog can't hold a pen. Durable power of attorney is, obviously we've all heard of the power of attorney. This is basically appointing someone who can make statutory durable power of attorney. The statutory part just means that the state of Texas created a very easy to complete, easy to understand template so that we didn't have 27,000 versions out there created, and now financial institutions are having to read and understand all these different versions. The state of Texas just has a statutory one. This is what a durable power of attorney looks like. But there are different things within that power of attorney that you can do. One of the things, if you have one of these, which I pray that everyone here has, is you can make it's what's called springing or effective immediately. So there's actually a part, you get down to page 3, and there's an A and a B, and you have to initial either A, this is effective immediately. I think actually A is, this is effective upon my incapacity, and B, this is effective immediately. You have to initial the one you want, and you physically, literally with a pen, have to cross out the other one. And that, if you were to say this is effective upon my incapacity, that is called a springing that's called a springing power of attorney. That means some event has to occur for this to become effective. I heard an attorney once say, she was giving a presentation and somebody in the audience say, well, I really like the springing because I don't want anybody to be able to use this while I'm still available to do my own things. And the attorney said, yes, I hear that. Understandable. But there's a couple things. One is, in the document, it typically says 1 or 2 medical providers, 2 of your doctors have to sign off and state that you are incapacitated. Several things could go wrong with that. One is it takes a lot of time. 2 is, have you ever tried to track down a doctor? They're kind of hard to get a hold of, right? And to sign things. 3 is they don't love signing those. That's a huge risk and liability to them. What if so-and-so runs off with the kitty, and then they're the ones that somebody ends up in court and says, well, this doctor said that I didn't have capacity, but I was fine. So they don't love doing it, and to find 2 of them to do it can be really tough. And that's just time consuming, and then you're just delaying an any kind of crisis situation that's going to take longer for your power of attorney to be able to access money you might really need. The other thing that she said that I thought was so insightful, and she said, so if you appoint someone as your power of attorney and you don't really trust them 100% today, while you have, you're aware and you're checking your own bank account, why would you trust them later when you're incapacitated? Maybe that's not the right person, right? If you're afraid this person's going to take this document and take advantage of you in some way, that might not be the right person for you. So I thought that was very insightful. This is a document that grants someone else to make legal and financial decisions on your behalf. Really important is this document becomes void upon your death. So I have had situations where a child, somebody's child, adult child will say, after somebody's passed away, they'll say, but I should be able to do all the banking. I am their power of attorney. And unfortunately, that ends the day you pass away. There is no more authority. That document means nothing once that person has passed away. So it is a document that applies to you in your lifetime. Your will and your trust applies after you pass away. And the trust actually is gray area. Trust is for both. Okay, so I love medical power of attorneys and durable power of attorneys. And the reason why I said I pray everybody has a medical power of attorney. Here's why. So I am in the process of becoming a certified private professional guardian. I was at the Texas Guardianship Association conference for 3 days last week. It was at the Omni, and learned a lot. The reason why medical power of attorney and durable power of attorney is so important is because it can avoid guardianships. I don't know, has anyone ever been involved in a guardianship? Maybe you were a guardian for a special needs child or for a parent at any time. It is not an easy relationship, guardianship, okay? So medical power of attorney and durable power of attorney pretty much is an amazing alternative to guardianship. It allows people to support you and take care of you at your most vulnerable time. If you do not have your durable power of attorney and something were to happen to you, if your capacity declines very quickly and you are no financial institution and no lawyer worth their money is going to allow you to sign legal documents, there is nothing left to do other than a guardianship. So what is a guardianship? A guardianship is a court-appointed legal relationship between somebody and a ward. And when that person becomes a ward, they lose really their own rights. So that person really cannot sign any legal documents. You can't get married. Some even, this is extreme, but there are some guardianship documents that take away the right to vote. Like it's pretty extreme. It is a mother may I type situation. It is extremely dependent, and there's a lot of oversight on the court, from the court. Again, every time I say from the court, think dollar signs, because a guardian, so if I'm the guardian for my adult special needs child, I have to have an attorney. My adult special needs child has to have an attorney. And anytime I want to spend anything, so annually I submit a budget. I say, this is how much I'm going to spend on my child. If anything changes, we have to submit an application to the court, and the judge has to sign off on it to say, yes, you may spend that money. If I spend it after, if I don't get permission, then we have to do a ratification, which is asking forgiveness. I already spent it, I'm so sorry. And it's just very expensive. It's very slow. There are 5, in Harris County, there are 5 probate courts, 5 judges. We just added one a couple of years ago, so we had 4, and then now we have 5. I was really hoping the speed of things would kind of improve. Not so much. So your guardian could apply for, we need to move. If your guardian decides that where you're living is not appropriate, and they want to move you, guess who has to sign off on that? A judge. So now you are on his docket for who knows when. And let's pray that they say yes. So I don't love guardianships. It's very expensive. It's very slow. And it's also very, I feel, invasive. It's a lot of rights to be handed over to somebody else. Now sometimes that's all that can be done. And we're grateful that that process is there, because somebody is now able to take care of you legally, financially, medically, that sort of thing. But that needs, I feel, should be a very last resort, which is why everyone should have a durable power of attorney and a medical power of attorney. How much time do I have, Frankie?
15 minutes.
Okay, so what can I do now? This is the part where I'm going to talk to you about some very practical, pragmatic things that you can do right now. So this one says, for my next trip, I will make this piano my parents left me disappear by finding someone in the area who actually wants a piano, has a truck, and will pick it up for free. Has anyone tried to sell a piano? It is horrible. Nobody wants them because it costs $1 million to get them moved. And so I've been there, done that. So let's talk about how we can help our beneficiaries and our heirs. This is one of those things that I would ask you to check annually. So if you have an insurance account or a retirement account, the beauty of those is they are probate avoidant. So those are real immediate. All they need really is a death certificate And then the insurance company and the retirement accounts, wherever your IRAs are, they take care of the rest. They see who your beneficiaries are, they mail them directly applications. Those people fill things out, send it back, and they get their money pretty quickly. They're wonderful. However, you should be checking your beneficiaries fairly regularly, like maybe annually. I'm not sure, anytime you get your tires rotated, think about checking your beneficiaries, because this is wonderful and easy to use, and it's also extremely challenging to change after somebody's passed away. I know from experience that when I was working on this firsthand, when I called the insurance company and said, okay, so-and-so's passed away, they said, okay, send the death certificate, and I said, okay, so who are the beneficiaries so I can let them know? No, they will not tell me. They will tell no one who the beneficiaries are. So it is very, very challenging to get information you need, and your family is really in the blind unless you've talked to them and they've seen your beneficiary form in a file somewhere. If you are online and you have online accounts, 99 times out of 100, this can be done online. You log into your account, you fish around and fish around and fish around until you finally find where you can change your beneficiaries. You do that online. I think sometimes they ask for a social security number, but they want their name, their date of birth, social security number, and you can change it right there online. If you are not a techie person and you just prefer not to spend that time that way, you just call your insurance agency and say, I want to change my beneficiary, and they'll either email you or mail you a form. You fill out the form, you send it back. But this is really, really important, because as wonderful as it is, it's a real headache if it's not right. And that goes for the retirement accounts. Something you can be working on right now is organizing your passwords. So, I know, everybody's favorite topic, right? Passwords. We all love them. We love to hate them. Your executor, your person should know how to unlock your phone, for the love. Your person should always know how to unlock your phone. If it's a code, we all have codes, right? Mine reads my face, but I also have a code. Please give them the code, and if you change the code, call them and say, I've changed the code. Because how many accounts have you logged into and it sends a text to your phone, right? That's not going away anytime soon. So please make sure they can get into your phone. There are different things. If you have an iPhone, if you use Apple for your phones, there's something in the settings where you can assign someone as your legacy contact. And so if anything ever happens to you, they can call Apple. I was my mom's legacy. What do I need to do? And Apple will walk that person through how to get access to your Apple ID and your account. So that's a wonderful thing. We can do that after if you want. If you want to come see me, I'll show you where that is. Yes, ma'am.
Finger touch on your computer?
Finger touch on
Be
the
sure
computer.
you have somebody else being able to finger.
Sure, yes. If you want to add somebody's thumb to your laptop, you can. But just like most things, there should be also a password that can bypass that. So make sure they have passwords to your laptop too and can get into your email. You can use anything to save your passwords. It really does not matter. This is a little book that I found online. It's like a little address book. You can actually use a literal address book and just put in Netflix in the end, behind the end tab, and put your ID and your password. Thank you so much. There are vaults online. There are what's called password vaults. Again, I'm an Apple person. They've got me. I don't know how to change. I couldn't change out of Apple if I wanted to because they're in my life. But the iCloud keeps, there's like a password. If you use a Mac like Frankie has, it's all stored in your iCloud. There's a password manager through Apple. If you don't use Apple, there are other things out there. There's LastPass. There's a million of them. If you are a techie person and you don't want to write them down, please use a password vault. It's going to help your family so much. Or do both, that's right. So I was, for so many years, we were told, don't write your passwords down. Somebody could find them. Okay, if they want my password to allrecipes.com, I guess they can have it. But I actually was in a conference and an FBI guy was talking, and he said it's actually now safer to have them handwritten because the likelihood that someone's going to come into your house, rifle through all your things, and find the password on that sticky note is a lot less likely than some nefarious guy in online, some hacker hacking your account. So they're actually walking that back and say write them down. Take that, do with that what you will. Funeral arrangements. I'm a big proponent of pre-need plans. Love them. If you don't know much about them, there's a million places around. Go online, Google pre-need plan, but essentially you are working with a company and they're going to walk you through and you're going to choose this and choose that and I don't want that and please don't do that, and you're going to leave there having paid ahead of time for your service or whatever it is that you want, whether it's just cremation. Neptune Society is excellent for cremation only.
Really good.
It's very good and I highly recommend it. But if you want something a little bit more and you know you want a service, just reach out to your local funeral home and every single one of them has a prepaid plan. If that's not something available to you right now, you're not going to be paying ahead of time, then at least write down. It could be a piece of paper inside your Bible. It could be in a file. It could be someplace. But write down how you envision it. It is such a gift to your children while they're grieving that they don't have to also go, okay, scripture, songs. Just have something written down and it will be such a gift of time and energy for them. Okay, we're gonna fast track these because these are, Frankie, is there a way to give everybody this PowerPoint presentation
Yes.
afterward? Perfect. You can take a picture of this or you can wait to get it in your inbox. While you're living, if you think you might have, actually just go to it anyway. It's called claimittexas.gov. That's where you can find unclaimed property. If you got a refund on your phone bill in 1987, that money is probably, and you never cashed that check, that money's probably sitting there. It's not a fun process, but it is 1,000 times easier for you to do that now while you're living than your executor. Your executor can have all the magic golden tickets in the world, and it is such a pain. It is so hard to get that after the fact. Just, if you're bored, go to that website, put in your name and your old address, and see what you've got. Simplify your assets. I love investing. It's fun. It's a hobby for me, and I have it everywhere, right? That is not fun for your executor if you have it everywhere when you pass away. Please consider having it all at whatever big financial institution you want. Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, Chase, Merrill Lynch, pick one, probably doesn't matter. But put them all in one place so that your beneficiaries and your executor and your trustee has one place that they're calling. One girl or one guy that they're talking to, and not, I had clients once, mom loved to invest. She passed away, unfortunately, without a will. She loved to invest, and she had mutual funds at literally 13 different institutions, and they all had their own different forms, and we had to figure out each one, and they all needed death certificate. They all needed the latest statement, right, the last quarterly statement. You had to get to the bank within 60 days of your letters of administration for the medallion signature guarantee. I am not kidding you when I tell you we were in the Fidelity office because this was the only financial branch that would do it for us. We tried Bank of America where she had an account and it didn't work. So finally Fidelity said, we'll help you. And we were there for 2.5 hours trying to push through all this paperwork. My client was in tears. It was not fun. So please simplify. All at one place would be great. Clean out your files. You do not need your tax returns from 1987. I promise you. And here's the deal. If your family's cleaning out your files, they have to shred every single thing that has a social security number on it. And that's expensive and kind of a pain. So just clean out, clean house, get some of that old stuff out, If you're not sure how long you need to keep something, ask AI, hey Siri, how long do I have to keep my tax returns? It'll tell you. It's not, I think it's like 10 years. Some people say 7, some say 10. Yeah, I've heard 7 is what usually my role. But you don't need everything. I was helping somebody the other day, and I was coming through check registers from literally the 70s. If you're living here, you probably did that already. You're probably done with that. But in case it's all in a storage unit, just have somebody clean it out. Transfer on death deeds. If you have property, real property, transfer on death deeds can be a really great tool. It avoids probate. Essentially what you're doing, some people call them ladybird deeds. That's actually different than a TOD, but they're very similar. Just talk to your attorney. This can be done with a real estate attorney. It can be done with an estate planning attorney. It can be DIY if you're really tenacious to do it. But transfer on death deeds, essentially, it's exactly what it sounds like. You create a new deed to your real property, and you just assign exactly who you want it to go to. It can be more than one person. You can have it go to 3, 5 different people. And then you record that with the title company and the county. And then once you pass away, all they need is death certificates. So if you leave this earth without a lot of cash, you did a great job spending your money while you were here. Good job. But you do have that, piece of property in East Texas. That transfer on death deed means that probably if you don't have a lot of assets, your kids will never have to go to court and do all that stuff. They're just handling the deed. I will say this, if you're going to do that, and you know that your beneficiaries don't get along, you've got 2 kids or a cousin, a niece and a nephew, and they can't stand each other, but you want them to each get half of your house, don't do that. Just let your executor sell the house and give them the funds, because those 2 people on the transfer of death deed now have to choose a realtor together, choose a sale price, choose an offer. First of all, decide, are we going to sell or keep it? So there are a billion decisions around real property that don't sound like a big deal until you're working with someone you can't stand. So I've seen that. So if you know your beneficiaries don't get along, just put it in your estate and your executor can deal with it. Engage a financial advisor. I love financial advisors. They are so great for after you pass away and during your incapacity. They usually know you pretty well. They know your estate, they know what you've had, they know the history of, they know how you see the future and how you see, are you risk averse, do you love risk? So they know you pretty well, and they can be wonderful resources for your family later, especially in your incapacity. So when something happens and now your power of attorney needs to step in and start taking over and driving, your financial advisor should be one of the first people they call, and they just say, Gail, we put mom and I'm going to be taking over, what should we do? And they can be they're part of their team now. Your financial advisor, good ones really do become part of the team, and I love working with financial advisors. Inventory your assets. Please don't make anyone have like the world's worst Easter egg hunt. Where is the money? Where's the stuff? That's not fun, because really what that's called in legal terms is discovery. And discovery means we're watching the mail. Hopefully you pass away or you're incapacitated somewhere near like January or February and we start getting 1099s, that'd be great. But if you don't and it's May, we have a long time to figure out where the money is. And so it's really great if you just have a spreadsheet. It could be a legal pad with inside your will documents or wherever you keep your estate planning. Just tuck it in there, and this property, I've got accounts at Schwab. I have that, you remember I have that paper stock from that first company that I worked for, that's in the da-da-da-da. Just everything that they might, where's the money? Just think about that. That way they don't have to hunt for it. Also, when you pass away, your executor has to submit an inventory of assets to your lawyer, and the lawyer submits that to the court. And again, that's one of those things that can take time, because if your executor doesn't know what you have, then they are digging through your email. They are calling your banker. They're looking at your bank statements. Oh, they were getting, what is this $3,000 a month that they were getting deposited in their account? Well, now I'm working backwards to figure that out. So just save them some hassle and do that for them. And then of course, a list of important contacts. That's easy, right? But it's such a gift to them, for them to have names and phone numbers. And you might think, well, they're all in my address book. But when opening up somebody else's address book is like sometimes hieroglyphics. I don't know who these people are. Are they still alive? What's going on? So, maybe just, and as we age, our list of contacts might get a little smaller because people start aging with us, right? But here you guys are living in this beautiful community with a million friends. So give your family a gift of, I want these people to know. Or if you just call Frankie, she knows who to tell.
Probably true.
So just write that down, right? So Frankie underlined, okay? But give them a starting, a good chance. So we're going to review this really quick. What important documents do you need to gather? You should have your all in one place. Please do not put this in a safe deposit box. Please do not do that. Because if you pass away and your will is in the box, they can't get into the box. They can't. It's going to take God to get them, the bank to open that box for them. So please don't put this in a safe deposit box. Put it in a fire safe box somewhere where everybody knows where it is. None of this should be secret. Be brave and communicate with your family now. This should not be a secret. So tell them where your will is, where the trust is, where all these documents are, your advance directive, your medical power of attorney, your durable, your any kind of life insurance documents that you have and statements. It's amazing if you have any kind of accounts, you get a quarterly statement. Every time you get them, just tuck those in with your will, because that's a great place for your family to go, oh yeah, ExxonMobil, I forgot. And it's a statement right there. Keep your passwords and account information with them, and then any wishes for your funeral. Okay, how can executor support help? Okay, so here's what we do. We do a couple of things. We provide fiduciary services. Like I mentioned, we have clients who say, my family is getting much smaller and I don't have anyone left that I really trust, nor do I want to burden them. I have a niece in Chicago, but gosh, she's got 3 kids and I love her, but it's a lot to ask of her and I don't want to do that. So what we do is we provide fiduciary services, meaning we will serve as power of attorney, successor trustee, alternate executor or executor. We will do medical power of attorney on a case-by-case basis. Kind of depends on the situation, and we just need to have a conversation about that. But normally I do say yes. We also provide executor assistance. So you've got an executor, you've done your estate plan, the executor is set up, however, you know that person's going to need a helping hand. Maybe they're easily overwhelmed. Maybe this is just not their strength. Paperwork and accounts and money. You love them, you want them to do it, you trust them, but they're going to struggle with this kind of work. Or you just want to give them a gift of, hey, here's Amy. Call her. So we work with executors to help them get through the process faster. Like I said at the beginning, I had an assumption that the attorney was going to do it all. That is so not true. So this is a part-time job. For some people, this can be a part-time job. And you might be thinking, not for mine. I've got it all simplified. Okay, but it still takes time. So we do that. And then personal assistance for seniors. This is something that's come up in the last year. I told y'all I was a personal assistant for 10 years. This is where basically my passions have found a crossroad. So I got really good at helping people, making their life a little bit easier, and also being a person that can kind of be behind the scenes of their life. I had keys to their houses and passwords and credit cards and all that stuff. I have found that there are some seniors who are living independently and maybe they're having some early stage memory loss or just they're having a hard time keeping track of everything. This service helps them maintain and retain their independence a little bit longer. So what that looks like is it's either weekly or every other week, and I or one of my associates comes in, and it's usually about 2 hours. That's about what they can take. Like nobody wants to be doing that kind of stuff for much more than 2 or 3 hours. But we go through mail and we check email, and if they're having any problems with their TV or their phone or whatever it is, we troubleshoot and we fix it. I have a client who you know how you get those explanation of benefits like so much and they're this thick and you go through them? She's a retired captain in the Navy. Trust me, she goes through those. And she was a nurse too in the Navy. And so she goes through them and she said, I don't believe I was ever in Florida last year. And so we looked into it. I helped her call Medicare. It turns out this was a fraudulent company. They weren't really charging her, but they were charging Medicare. So we just do stuff like that. She gets a lot of spam calls and texts. She's having some early memory loss stuff and early dementia. And so those things kind of really distract her. And so I help clean out all that stuff so it's not so distracting and it doesn't bother her. So we do a little bit of that. It literally is a personal assistant. What do you need? We can do it. So that's how we work, and that's how we support seniors and everything end of life. This is my final slide. This is my information. You guys, my cards are over there, and Frankie knows how to get a hold of them.
He kept lousy records.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where some of his assets are.
That's right,
So
yeah.
please keep records.
Keep records.
Yeah. So I want to tell you this. So Frankie, actually, I forgot about this. So one of the things, if you don't know how to get started, there are resources online that you can buy, right? So this book is a very simple one. I would recommend this for someone who has kind of a smaller estate or, a young family. But this is called The Folio. It's from a company called Savor, S-A-V-O-R. It's very pretty. And there are all these little stickers and table of contents, and you can kind of create your own filing system. So I might have my estate planning documents in some of these, maybe copies of my driver's license and passports and things. And this might be where a young family or someone with a simple estate keeps all of their information. This is the big daddy. So this is called Knockbox. This normally has a sticker on it, but I ran out of my Knockbox stickers. But the stuff inside, you're welcome. I'm going to put this over in the back. You're welcome to flip through it. Knockbox is not mine, I wish. It's sold online. And it's spelled N-O-K-B-O-X. N-O-K stands for next of kin. And essentially it is a filing system, but it is heavy duty. And what I mean by that is if you were to purchase something like this, this walks you through every nook and cranny that you could ever imagine or forget. So there are instructions at the front of how to use this box, but there are tabs like primary residence, mortgage, maintenance and repairs, utilities, HOA, vehicles, bank accounts, insurance. There's 5 tabs for insurance. We've got a lot of insurance. There's credit cards.
Is there a mini knockbox?
I know, right? There might be. They actually have several products. You should go onto their website. I don't have it up there because I don't work for Knockbox. But you can Google that and find them online. They've got some wonderful products. They do have smaller stuff that's more of a folder, like a fireproof. But yes, have something like this. You don't have to buy this. This is kind of expensive, to be honest. But you can do a DIY system. What I find is some of my clients buy this and then it sits in their dining room collecting dust. So when you buy this and it gets about 1/4 inch of dust, you'll know to call me and I can come sit with you and work on it. Okay, so we do have one of those services where we just help you get prepared. You will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting and have some homework, but you'll have someone like me sitting next to you, helping you and thinking through it. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just need someone next to me to get the work done. Because I'll put the things off that I don't want to do. Any other questions? Yeah.
Maybe physical office,
Love to be
If somebody wanted to come and visit you in your office,
Yeah.
where would that be?
This is a post-COVID world, so I have a office at home, and I'm out in my car so much. I typically meet my clients at their homes or wherever they're living.
she
So
works for the Lincoln lawyer.
that's right.
yeah.
Exactly. Oh, trust me, every single mile gets written off in my taxes, and I keep track of it because I work from my home in my car. Because I usually meet people at their homes.
And you mentioned you had colleagues that also help you with this work, so how does that integrate?
Yeah, so, okay. So I do have some associates. I have a part-time admin assistant and one other woman who's helping me personal assistance for seniors. I do have a co-working space that I go to. I don't necessarily meet clients there, but I pay like, I think it's $180 a month to have access to this beautiful office, and I can book out a conference room. And so when I need to meet with my staff, we'll meet there. We used to meet at my house, but that got to be a pain because then I felt like I had to clean my house and then I wasn't having meetings with my staff, and so we got this other third place. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Car title.
Car title. Oh man, car titles. Car titles are tough. It really kind of depends on who the lady or man is behind the window, right? But they're not fun. But at least have them where they can find them. That's what I would say is I have found car titles in the most random places. Please at least have it. And then when we have the title, then someone like me or Google or your attorney can help you with how you sign it and all that. And actually, if you're an executor, one of my favorite things to do with cars is that I need to sell is go down to like CarMax or something, because the people in that office, I promise you know how to fill out that title. They will get that done. I've actually had cars to sell that we had no title, and CarMax helped us with that.
Can you do a transfer on death for your car?
No, I don't. Well, okay, hang on. Yes, I have not done one. I think I have heard that well, I'll look into that. I think I have heard of that, but I've not come across it because most people have not done that. But I think you can.
Yeah, my sister in Ohio, she's already done that.
Okay, so Ohio may make it really easy, and maybe Texas makes it tough, because I haven't come across it here in Texas yet.
Was that you that just said that?
Yeah.
Oh, you can tell me
Do
later.
you provide services by contract, and is it a monthly fee when you?
Don't leave the
Everything
car.
I do really is an hourly fee. I have found that works best for me and the client, actually, so I'm not, we're getting the best use of our time. For the personal assistance, it's an hourly fee, and I only charge the time that we're there. The same for the executor assistants. So maybe somebody has a really big estate and it's going to be really time consuming. That's going to cost more than someone with a more simple estate. And you might think you have a simple estate, but then we find mineral rights, and then that's a little bit costlier. But
That, like, you were talking about listing assets, and of course, a car would be one of them, thank you. Furniture, is that considered? Because I heard something about if it's valued over a certain amount.
okay, here's what I would
you have to
say.
approve it.
This falls into the communication is key bucket. I have a client who, he's a bachelor, never married. He loved to collect art. I am his executor. So I went and met him in his home in Conroe, and I'm walking around going, ooh, there's a lot of art here. And so we have spent a lot of time, and he's ended up with some homework where I really need him to kind of take a picture of it, snapshot, and then write down kind of some provenance and what he thinks the value is. Or at the very least, you should call Gary at this gallery when it's time to sell it. Or this is worth nothing. This can literally go on the garage sale. I just thought it was pretty, and it was on a beach in Mexico. You know what I mean? But giving your family or your executor some sort of starting point so that they are not having to spend hours and hours on eBay and at auction houses and talking with people for stuff that didn't matter, or they don't accidentally sell something that was actually very valuable, and you are the best you have the most knowledge about the stuff in your apartment, in your house. As far as like, I have to write down the value of my furniture, yes, if you have, excuse me, when your executor is submitting an inventory of assets, if they know that mom has this very valuable collection of whatever it is, then yes, that should be in the inventory of assets. But it might have a line, otherwise it'll just say personal effects, and they'll just put down kind of like a round figure.
Would it make any sense to sell that to a beneficiary for $1 or $100 before they pass? So that everything actually belonged to someone else?
You don't have to sell it,
Give
actually,
it all to the
I don't
treasure
think
chest.
so. So, you might be thinking about inheritance tax. No. So you can avoid probate, well, okay. So most wills or estate plans will allow for, that, you know, you might leave your lawyer's office and they will say,
The art
you
sale.
can write your own
I don't have any wall
list
space
of
left.
wishes here. It's not technically official necessarily, but it's by your own hand. And it says, I want my curio cabinet to go to Susan. And that's pretty official. It's in your handwriting, it's with your estate plan documents, and it gives your executor direction and guidance. And this is official. Yes, please do that. And you don't have to sell it to them. You can just say, I want to
Well,
have
I
it.
mean, that's all that's left is the assets that are not in like retirement accounts or joint owned checking account, et cetera. That's all that's left is
Yeah.
some furniture.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't need to go to probate, would it?
No, it wouldn't. If you can avoid probate, they're not gonna make you go to probate because you have a curio cabinet that's worth $5,000. Like, no.
If it's a treasure chest here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today. This has been wonderful. I hope you guys got something out of it. Thank you for having me.